I'm Farhandala, transformational trainer, and welcome to Elevate Your Life, a transformational podcast, an invitation to take the journey towards your deepest self. It is my intention to inspire you to connect, move, and meditate. We'll tap in, tune in, and dive in, and together learn and reflect from authentic, real, and transformative conversations. Let's get started.
If you could take a moment and step into the shoes of a sexually abused person, maybe you can understand why we don't report it, especially males, and especially male athletes. Because of our society's expectations of what it is to be a man. The cultural problems of sports regarding medals and money over the well-being of athletes. And the unawareness of grooming and stigmatizing might help you understand this epidemic. Do I still wake up every morning feeling like it's my fault? Yes. Do the constant ramifications impede me of doing my daily chores and obligations? Sometimes. Do the experiences keep me from being a contributor to society? Hell no. I no longer have to carry those labels that I created for myself because someone else, a lawyer, a doctor, a mentor, a coach has made for me. By standing in front of you today, I am breaking my silence and I am creating a voice. I am no longer a victim. I am a survivor.
My guest today is John Michael Lander, and what you just heard is a clip from his TED Talk titled An Athlete's Silence. John Michael is the founder of An Athlete's Silence. As a 14-year-old Olympic-bound athlete, the adults entrusted in his training groomed and trafficked him into silence. Through his experiences, he created the Predatory Grooming Trifecta, Predatory Internet Grooming, or PIG, an athlete's arena. He is the author of Surface Tension and Cracked Surface, and the eBook, Understanding Predatory Grooming Trifecta. He's a certified self-talk neuroscience NLP coach, and a 2S LGBTQAI plus coach, and helps empower others to reclaim their lives. He has also written 4 novels. John Michael, it is a great honor to have you on this show. Welcome.
Thank you so much. And I'm telling you what an honor it is to be with you. There's this connection that I've always had with you since I first met you. And I'm just so proud of everything that you're doing and all the lives that you're helping.
Oh, thank you. But today's really about you. And I want to talk about you and the amazing human being you are and the work that you're doing. And I wanted to lead in with that TED Talk. And I got to say that I've listened to it several times. It moves me every time I listen to it. You got a standing ovation, and it was well-deserved. And I'll put the link in the description so that people can actually watch it. And I highly recommend that you all do. I want to start my first question by asking you, how did it feel to break your silence in regards to your sexual abuse?
Well, it's really interesting because there's 2 emotions going on right now. Hearing that clip play back, it took me right back to being on that stage and sharing, and it moved me actually, kind of like, wow, I never expected it to do that. So there's that expectation. But actually, when I actually broke my silence, being on that stage, I was filled with fear and really nervous, but I knew I had to do it. Before I actually decided to do the TED Talk, I was teaching high school, and I had a sophomore boy come in and share his story with me. And I found that it was almost like it was my story being reflected right in my face. And I remember leaving the school feeling like everything was going to fall apart. Everything that started, that was the pivotal point. And everything did start to unravel for me. And to the point that I thought I would end it all. I wrote a note to my partner and said goodbye to the two Boston Terriers and went into the garage. But the point is to actually stand on that stage all the way through the minutes going up to the end. It's fear.
Hmm.
So I wasn't sure how people are going to react. And yet I knew I had to do it. And then there was this sense of relief after saying that last statement. And there was, there's that moment of silence before anyone responded. And I was like, oh God, I hate it. They didn't get what I'm trying to say. And that's okay. But I was able to. So at that moment, that it seems like such a brief moment, but I felt like relieved. I finally broke my silence. I can let this go, or I can start healing now. I could start acknowledging it. Those are the things that were running through my head at that moment.
Well, how was the process of breaking your silence? I mean, getting on a TED Talk is definitely, a large platform. You're in a public arena. You're extremely vulnerable. Was there, a series of steps in breaking your silence before getting to that place, or was that the first time you actually, said what you had to say?
Well, that was the first public spot that I shared with everybody. But the months going up towards that performance was working with a mentor and fine tuning the speech, practicing and rehearsing. So I had the support of the TED Talk people in Dayton, and they were very supportive and they were guiding me. And, we went through that several times to make sure that we don't offend anybody because TED Talk's very, very particular in what you can and cannot say, you know. And so we were very careful not to use names and everything. But the important thing was to be able to share that story that is happening in sports people don't think about. Because I just saw a commercial for trafficking kids, and it's showing Asia because that's what we believe that's happening. It's happening overseas. It's happening somewhere else. It's happening in our own backyards. And I think sometimes even the word trafficking, people are not quite sure what that means right now. What is that? And that's where you're being sexually exploited and passed on to other different people. So to be a male and being able to share that, it's very scary because of our society
Right.
and what people talk about it. I should have fought back. Why did I allow this happen? We forget I was a 14-year-old boy when
Hmm.
this all started. And so it's just a matter of understanding and trying to figure that out. And the thing about it is that people says, well, you should have known and you should have left or you should. It's not that easy
Right.
because I was presented it as an opportunity to go to the Olympics, to get the support that I needed, to get the financials behind me so that I could compete at such a high level. Because when you get to that level, that's all you focus on. You don't have time to go do a job or anything like that. You're focused. So I think people forget that. And I think also within my story, we forget that my mother was groomed first before they even came to me. And later on, we found out that they had groomed my team, the board of directors of my team first, so that they could get themselves into that situation. Then they groomed my mother, and then they groomed me. So then my mother became part of the organization of this team, I guess you would say, and to make sure that I was at the right place at the right time and all this stuff. So she was actually taking me to some of these events,
The events meaning the places where the trafficking took place.
right, to
Got it.
meet the predator.
Wow.
Yeah.
Um, well, through that experience, you have created what you call the predatory grooming trifecta, some of which you just described right now, and the predatory internet grooming, also known as
Hmm.
what you call PIG, and athletes arena. Can you talk a little bit more about, you know, what these organizations are and who and how they service?
Well, they're actually programs and a workshop. And the first one, a predatory grooming trifecta, basically just shows how the predators will groom an organization first, parent or the guardian second, and then the child or the athlete, which allows the predator to go undetected for years, which we saw with the US gymnastics, which we saw at Ohio State, Penn State, um, in the hockey world and stuff like that, where it's all been very underground because They've already got the support of the organization. And as we saw with US Gymnastics, the CEO was going to protect that person so they didn't look bad, so that their brand wasn't lost, so that they didn't lose sponsorship and stuff like that. So it all becomes about other things for them. And that's why they will do everything they can to protect that predator. And that's what happens. And that's how they can get away with it for so many years. As we saw with the US Gymnastics, that predator that they put in jail would actually abuse the young gymnast with the parent in the room.
How?
He would have his
Or
back to the parent,
okay.
manipulating the child and saying and using jargon. I manipulate this, I need to move this here, and I need to do this so that we can get your hip back in line. If we don't, we're going to have a problem later on. So then after the appointment, the child will say, Mom, that wasn't right. I don't like. And then the parents, oh no, that's what he had to do. So it's just a matter of that whole game they
Right.
played. Same thing happened at Ohio State, and how that man was able to manipulate because he was ahead of 14 varsity teams at OSU. And so to be able to compete or participate in the sport that week, you had to be cleared by him. So all those athletes were going to him. And so and they used to call him different names, and I heard it all. Because I was taken there as a high school student, and there's no ramifications or no protections for high school students being taken onto campuses until recently with the Title IX because they have revised their protocols and everything. But as a high school student at my age, there was no protection because I wasn't going to school. I wasn't a student there. I was being brought up to practice with the university team with the hopes of going to that school on a scholarship. There was no protection of what was going on in the background. So that was that. And so I really wanted people to understand that these predators, and they could be men or women, really have manipulated the system to get themselves secure. Because if they have a protection of the organization, no one's going to question them. And then if they have protection of the parents, who's going to question that? Then it becomes about the adult talking about this kid. Who's going to believe the kid? So that's that. The predatory internet grooming I started that to help parents and children and teachers to understand the epidemic that's going on our internets. Because predators are able to get into these games, Fortnite, Roblox, um, and then actually connect with these children, and these children think that they're talking to someone their age, and invite them to a private room, and then it all starts happening.
Hmm.
And we have seen too many times young men, usually, high school age, who are manipulated, think that they're talking to a girl that finds them attractive, start sharing pictures, and then once they share that picture, they're blackmailed. And these young men have committed suicide. And it's taken as little as 4 hours. And Athletes Arena is a project that I'm working on now. It's brand new. It's getting to be able to speak with the athletes so that they can understand, are they being manipulated? Are they being abused? What does that look like to them? Because when you get into a certain level of sports, the normalization of what's happening is so real. I mean, in my case, my coach started touching me in front at meets, aligning my body. And there I am in a Speedo, and he would like adjust my hips and everything and help me stretch in front of everyone. So we thought this was normal. We thought this was just part of what the sport is. So it becomes normalized. And so as an athlete, we don't know. And the other thing that I did with the Athletes Arena is to help them after their sporting life is over. How do they get back into society? Because our NGOs just drop them. Oh, you're done? Okay. And we saw that happen with Michael Phelps,
Hmm.
the all-time Olympic champion, where he took a moment where he was going to step away from the sports. He lost all his sponsorship. He had to start it all back over before he came back to win the rest of those medals. And we saw a little bit of that with Simone Biles when she stepped away after Tokyo with the twisties to get back where she needed to go. It was hard work. It was not so much about getting in there at the gym, but it was getting the support back, getting the people to trust her again. which was the biggest dilemma she had. And again, if you hear her speak, she only went back to the Olympics so people would not forget what happened at US Gymnastics. Because if she would have left with Ali Raisman, nobody would talk about it again.
Mm.
But she was a constant reminder. So that's what we like. And then there's one other program that I'm working on called A Safe Warrior. And it's about people who don't want to acknowledge or have never acknowledged that maybe they were abused when they were younger. And this is a lot for men because we don't talk about it, we don't acknowledge it, and we try to hold it down and we try to act like we don't need to worry about it. But if we could go back and interview all the men who have committed suicide, we may find out that many of them have been sexually abused when they were younger. They just didn't know how to process it. So that's about, workshopping how to find out what do I do when I do realize that is this real? Are these feelings that I'm having based on that abuse? And it's also for the LGBTQAI community, because if you think about it, we're constantly abused verbally, emotionally, discrimination, and we're carrying that with us. And until we can actually acknowledge it, how do we begin our healing process? Because we need to heal ourselves first before we can get anything else out.
Oh, that's so true. Why is it that men are less likely to report sexual abuse?
Well, I think you know that as well as I do, but it's a great question. It's the stigmas that we have.
Hmm.
You know, men are, it's still believed today, men cannot be sexually abused or raped unless they wanted it. That's what we carry.
Hmm.
Why didn't you fight back? Real men fight back. So you must not be a real man, or you must have wanted it, or you must have liked it.
Hmm.
And now you're coming back and just, you're talking about it. Um, it's also the fact that the shame and the guilt that we feel because we do that to ourselves as well. So does it mean if I'm being abused as a teenager, does that mean I'm gay? I'm not even figured out your sexual orientation yet. Does that mean that that's what I'm supposed to be? And how many young men have decided that that's what they think they are, and they're really not, which brings up confusions later on in life.
Hmm.
They could have been supposedly heterosexual, but then start thinking, well, I've been sexually abused, so I must be gay.
Hmm.
Or it goes the other way, where they become abusers themselves, because they don't know what to do with what's going on. You know, there's studies that show that predators will go and I don't want to say market or target, this is the word I'm looking for, the group of people that they were when they were abused. And a lot of times they're trying to do the psychoanalysis on themselves, trying to figure out why this happened. So they're going to go back and put themselves in the situation where they're dealing with someone who looked like what they look like to understand, is this really I'm supposed to be doing? And what they're doing is then abusing another child. So it just keeps going. And it's just crazy to think about how we do that to ourselves.
Hmm. Yeah, and I don't want to take away from your experience or anyone else out there that's been sexually abused, but while working on a very popular television show as a background performer, I experienced sexual harassment, and I did not want to talk about it, or I wanted to shut it down. And I did have the support of one particular cast member who witnessed and saw, who I also shared what was going on and said, I got your back if you want to report it. But I just wanted it to go away, and I managed to shut the whole thing down. It was also, when I look back, very predatory of what was happening to me, because at that time my father had just transitioned, and so I was in a
Mm,
very vulnerable time. And this person made it sound like they were just expressing concern and wanting to support, but it was making me very uncomfortable. Um, and the touching and all that was very, unwanted and not reciprocated in any way. And I was very uncomfortable. And so I can understand why so many men don't want to come forward with abuse. And around that time, it was sort of the rise of the Me Too movement. And I
hmm
remember reading a post by another female that said, this is about women and this is about their story. And if you're a man and if you've experienced this, this is not your movement. And so any thoughts I had about wanting to share my story at that time, because I was a bit, sort of motivated by the Me Too movement because of what was happening and people were sharing their stories, to maybe come out and, share mine, though it wasn't as
Hmm.
bad as some of the others, of course. But to say that it happened to me too, I just decided not to say anything. So this is kind of like the first time I'm actually talking about it. There's only one or two people that I share this with outside of the work environment. But that only makes me admire your courage even more, because of the way you shared your story. And I love how you ended that TED talk. You said, I am a survivor, and I am not a victim," as you so emotionally stated in your talk. I was wondering if you could talk about how you transitioned from being a victim to a survivor of sexual abuse. What did that involve?
Right, that's a great question. I just want to take one moment and go back as well. A lot of male athletes are afraid to come forward because they may lose their chance to represent their country. I
Hmm.
mean, if we think about the Paris Olympics just recently, how many athletes were there? And if the stat is true that 1 in 4 female and 1 in 6 males are sexually abused before 18, how many of those athletes were abused? We don't know that. And I'm so thankful for you because your bravery today and sharing openly to all the listeners, guts. I'm privileged that I get to be a part of that. But even in your situation, think about it. Was there also fear? Because if you did come forward and share, you may have been removed from the project that you were on, you know, and we have all these things that we think about. And I also just want to think that that word vulnerability kind of makes me feel, wait a second, we're all vulnerable,
Hmm.
and I hear, a lot of like research people use that word as a symbol that if you are vulnerable, you may get abused. And I know that with myself, and I know another young woman who was a model who was kidnapped in France and trafficked. We never thought we were vulnerable. We thought we had the world by the tail. We were representing our countries. We were, going forward. We saw opportunities. And I think in your situation too, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but you saw this opportunity to be on this television show. And you were doing it, and it was great. And you didn't want to lose that opportunity
Hmm.
by coming forward and saying something. And again, what we interpret through what you heard through the Me Too movement kind of invalidated the fact that you had a platform to share. And if we are questioning that, we will then tell ourselves that then ours wasn't that bad. It didn't really matter. It wasn't as bad as what these women are going through. But you went through what you went through. And that's something that you need to make sure you keep for yourself. I'm really struggling a lot lately with labels such as victim, survivor, thriver, all this stuff. And that's where the safe warrior came out because I was trying to find another word that make it sound like we're choosing to move forward. And I think what first changed me from going from victim to survivor at that time was my mental mind, the way I thought of it. I have been started. I started doing self-talk, and the person who was working with me, and I think you know who she is, Tracy, and she basically said to me, "Look, the situation happened, the event happened. You cannot change that. We cannot do anything about that, but you can change the way you look at it and the meaning you put on that event. And if you continue to see yourself as a victim, you will be. But if you could turn that around somehow, and you have to do it by yourself, inside yourself, to find out, I don't have to hang on to that anymore. That does not determine who I am today. It happened to help me to be where I am today, but it's not going to determine. And then you become a survivor. That's how I heard it. So that's why I was so proud to say that because I felt like I made that transition. I turned that knob just a little bit to see that I'm no longer the victim. I was able to stop hanging on to that moment. But if you go back and you listen to that TED Talk, I still get emotional about it. It still was connected. I still was in the victim mode a little bit with that because I still felt it. And I think a lot of it had to do with trying to break my silence, to open up and tell people in such a public arena. And to know that so many people have been able to hear and watch that TED Talk means a lot to me because it allows them to see we are constantly evolving and we're trying to change our lives and we're trying to grow and we're trying to heal. And healing is a lifelong journey. It's never going to change. And even in the LGBTQ community, we carry that with us, those shames, those guilts, those discriminations. And unless we could try to find a way that we don't need to put meaning onto them anymore, we can move forward. But even in the gay community, we take on personas and personalities to fit what we think so that we can belong,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. You know, I've seen so many young people who want to be a drag queen and they watch all the drag shows and all this, and they think that they have to be nasty and rude and put people down. That makes them famous. But what they forget is that it's not who they truly are. And and we have all these I don't want to call them copycats, but they are, who think that if I act like RuPaul, then I am going to be famous. Well, RuPaul made it because RuPaul's RuPaul, and she created that persona, and that's who she is when she's RuPaul. If we copy someone else, we're creating a false self.
Hmm.
And that's what's hard. And it's the unicorn in us that is what attracts people, you know? I don't know if I answered your question. I went on a little tirade there, possibly, but it just all this stuff started coming into my head.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, that was all obviously valuable information. But I think what I'm hearing you say, and after re-listening to your TED Talk, that it's an ongoing process, and sometimes you can still feel like the victim, and you're not always in feeling empowered and that survivor. And that's something that is an ongoing, work in progress, and I can understand that. But how does one find their voice? How does one find their true power after what you've been through?
All right, this is a personal thing, but I'll answer the way I'm working on it today. I used to look at for everything outside of me, if that means externally. I would look for approval. I would look for acceptance. I would look for being a part of a tribe. I always felt that it was always outside of myself. And that kept me in the victim mode in my head. And once I started to think, wait a second, if I go within myself and start understanding all the different things and layers that I put on myself, I can slowly, like an onion, start peeling those back. And I can get to the core of who I truly am. But I have to go inside. I had to go inside. I couldn't do it externally because externally was only helping me what does Dr. Shad say? Created the neural pathways stronger by not being able to be truly who I am because I'm not good enough. By going externally, I always set myself up for disappointment. That makes sense. And so I was never going to be good enough. I was never going to do enough. Even if I won 5 gold medals, if you you talk to not Mark Spitz, but yeah, even Mark Spitz, the swimmer, but Michael Phelps, and even as Simone Biles, they could get another medal. Then the next medal make them even better than who they are. And I love the fact that Simone said, "I've done everything I can in this sport. It's time to take a step back and try my new chapter in my life." And I think that's really what it's all about. But for her to find that and for me to find my situation, I had to go inside because all the answers for me are within me. And by externally looking out all the time, I'm always disappointed because it's something there to tell me I'm not good enough. And it's hard. It's really hard because we're taught from a very young age. We are taught what to believe and how to live our lives. by the people who are our loved ones, by the school, society, government are telling us how we have to act. And our original, I think, training is that we have to fight back. We have to protect ourselves. We're constantly told that if you don't protect yourself, someone's going to take advantage of you. And for those victims who went through that experience, that's what they believe. They believe that that's why they were abused because they did not protect themselves. We also had the idea of attack first, so no one attacks you. And that's all negative energy. And if you think about that, we all live on energy. And what we want to do is to raise ourselves to the higher levels of energy that we possibly can on this journey. And if we're constantly judging and putting other people down, that reflects back onto us. So then basically what we're doing is we're actually judging ourselves. And so to find the way to try to turn that and look at yourself and start to see who you truly are is scary because it goes against everything else that we've been taught. You know, the rich people are rich because that's the way they are. Nobody else can get there. We have all these beliefs that are based on lies. And if we could just allow ourselves to start finding out how we feel, what we like, and it's starting out with simple things. What is my favorite color? Have you ever really asked yourself, what's your favorite color? Not what your favorite color is because Aunt Joni said that was her favorite color, but to really try to figure out what is my favorite color. It can be scary for some people because they don't know. Or what do you want to do in 5 years? Well, I have to work with a corporation because my mother wants me to, and I don't want to disappoint her. So then what you end up doing is living your life for your mother, not for you. Who's driving that car of your life? And it's scary to say, I don't like that corporate job. I want to be an artist. You know, is artist really your thing, or is that again somebody else who you admire and you're just borrowing? We borrow and adapt and um, take on all these different ideas that we think are ours, but they're really not. They're someone else's. And so you slowly just start exploring. It takes time. I mean, depending on how old you are, that's how many years you've been groomed, if you want to use that word, or are prepared or taught to be who you are today.
Mhm.
And people want a quick fix yesterday.
Right.
And they don't realize how long it took them to get to where they are. And then they expect to have it healed by 2 days or it doesn't work. So it's a process and it's a journey process. And I still to this day will get triggered, if you want to use that word, of what happened. I will see a picture of one of the people that were part of that pact or that group of professional men, and it will send me down into it so fast.
Hmm.
So it is a constant, but you start to take on tools of how to step back and look at it and say, okay, now you start realizing that you have a choice. And that's the first thing that you want to start learning is it is a choice. Do I want to be upset or do I want to be happy? You get to make that choice. Although we've been programmed for so long that we don't have that choice. That makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah, and to echo some of the things that you said with the RuPaul example, I think that when you are trying to be someone else other than yourself, you're not in alignment with your true power, right? Like,
Right.
and I think that when you are speaking from your voice and from your unique personality, that's when you're tapped into your own true power and your true voice. And I think we've all fallen into the trap of trying to be someone that we're not, or looked up to someone and tried to be like them. And it never works out for us, right?
Right. Well, you know what? I want to comment on you for a second because
Okay.
I have been watching you, since we met and,
Mhm.
your social media and everything and, knowing about your life and getting to know you. I have loved the metamorphosis that you're taking, trying to express who you are
Mhm.
uniquely and in different ways, adding certain touches that that are very important to you. But maybe in society, when they see you, may not even recognize that it's there.
Right.
but you're trying that on and you're finding that power. You're
Hmm.
finding your style, your expression. And I think that's something that we need to do, all of us. And that's something that I have a hard time with. And I look at you and I admire you. So thank you. I look at someone like Billy Porter. I knew Billy when he was starting out in New York. We were both struggling actors and we would laugh and stuff. And we had to be this straight character because that's what they told us we had to be.
Right.
And to see Billy to be able to express himself, evolve through Pose, the TV show he did, and get to express himself fashion and everything is unbelievable to me. I love that
Mm.
because that's who he is. And that's how I see you as well. You are becoming your true self, by adding just a little touch here and a little touch there, something of your mom. You know, you're going to this event. Do I do that? And it empowers you because you make a choice.
Right.
And it's not about other people noticing it. It's about who you are.
And I
So
think
thank
maybe
you.
they do, and not because I'm doing it to get people's attention, but I think people pick up on your frequency and your energy, right? And when you are storytelling intentionally, by that I mean, like you mentioned me wearing something of my mom's if I'm going to an event, people will pick up on it, and if it becomes a conversation where somebody initiates or comments about something that I'm wearing, I'll tell them the history behind it. I'll say, this is my late mother's. And I always get this, oh, and I'm like, yeah, I always like to honor her with something that I'm wearing if I'm going to a wedding or an event or whatever it may be. I was at the Consulate General Ball last October. I got invited to that, and I wore a bow tie and I wrapped my mother's necklace around the bow tie. And to a lot of people, they came up and complimented the the fashion side of that, little bling sort of like accessory that I was wearing. And I was very touched that people noticed. But then I told them the history about it, and it brought a whole other level of meaning of, no, I didn't just wear this so that I could be fashionable, but it was also a way to honor my mom. So people do notice, and to create the conversation around it is so satisfying to me because I feel like I'm further honoring her through talking about her.
And by honoring her, you're honoring yourself
Mm,
and you're exposing your true self.
thank you.
That's that unicorn inside of us, you
Right.
know, and we all have it. We all have it. And I don't want to make people get upset with me. There's nothing wrong with seeing a mentor or seeing someone you idolize and try on their 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 expression or whatever you want to call it. But as long as you know you're trying it to see if you like it, but is that really yours? And in your situation, sitting there thinking about you're going to the ball. What am I going to? I want to add something to my mother's. You probably went through several things in your head of what you wanted to
Mm,
include
right. Yes,
and how
definitely.
you were going to include it.
Hmm.
And then you settled on something that felt really good to you. And then to have someone acknowledge it, it's just even like icing on the cake because they see you. That's incredible.
Thank you. Well,
You're
now
welcome.
to bring the conversation back to you as my guest.
Sorry about
No,
that.
no, I appreciate that. Thank you so
But
much.
it's such a good learning thing
Yeah.
because you're doing what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You're actually putting it out there.
Hmm.
And someone like me, and I'm going to use this as a comparison, and not to try to say one's right or wrong. I am still afraid to express myself
Really?
as who my true self is. Yes, so I
Okay.
still carry that I have to be this and I have to be that. I have to do
Right.
this.
Right.
You know. Now, when I'm by myself, sometimes I can allow myself to let that go a little bit. That makes sense.
Right.
But, and it's a whole thing, even with my sexual orientation has always been bittersweet to me. And I've never really, this is going to be the first time I say this out loud. Oh my God. I don't think I've ever really owned it.
Really?
I've kind of just kind of,
Breaking news. John Michael Landers never really
yeah,
owned it. Tell me
I don't think I
why.
had, um,
Really?
because I don't know. Again,
Mm,
if we go back to what we were talking about earlier, my first experience sexually, was with the 60-year-old doctor in a Motel 6. And I thought, okay, this is what it's all about. This is all I'm good for. And then being passed on to other people. I had never had a kiss with someone my own age. So I had always gone through this whole thing that I had missed out trying to figure out who I really was, and so I never really felt like I embraced. I would put myself in situations where I knew I could feel comfortable, you know, and the community and doing things like gay pride and stuff like that. And I felt the camaraderie. Sometimes I still felt like I was the outsider, the outlier, that I was just borrowing this to feel like I could fit in somewhere. I couldn't go to the straight world because I knew that I wasn't allowed over there, except unless it was with women, then I was a safety.
Hmm.
And then there was other things that kept coming into my head was that it's not like I'm attracted to a person based on their physicality. I've always been attracted to the person based on what comes out from inside them,
Hmm.
what I see. And that confused me because I could be not attracted to the outside of body forms, but I have this dear, dear friend, and we were both actors out in LA. And I swear to God, she was my soulmate. And we're still friends to this day. And I can't tell you, the only thing I remember is that she has these incredible blue eyes, but she's a knockout. Everyone wanted to be with her, and everyone thought that we were together. And yet, I wasn't in love with her physically. I was in love with that person inside. And the same thing would happen with a guy. And so I was confused. I never knew what that meant. And then, becoming certified in the LGBTQAI area, I started to realize, well, maybe that's just a fluid thing. Maybe that's just, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. And I started thinking that is green to the fact that I could even say that I feel like I've never embraced it is because of that.
Right.
That I'm starting to realize that there's nothing wrong. I don't have to be one or the other or anything. And I have a niece, or I maybe called nephew now, who who is a they, them, and is constantly teaching me
Well.
that it's okay. I see the world differently, and I want to change my name, and I want my name to be this. And the reason is because I look at it like this. This is what this name means to me.
Hmm.
And to be able to hear, and, oh my God, she's graduating. I'm going to call it S, is graduating today. So that's exciting. But to hear them speak that way
Hmm.
is a lesson learning. And I think that's one of the things that's really great about our journey is that we are allowed to continue to grow. We're allowed to continue to understand things that we don't think we understand. And it's okay to say, I don't get it,
Right. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and I talk about this in my first episode where, and if you haven't listened to it, you can go back to episode one, where I thought I was comfortable with my sexuality and I was very comfortable being a gay man. And then I had to talk about it in front of a live studio audience, when my family and I were on Family Feud. And after that whole experience, I came out of it feeling even more confident in who I was. Like, it's one thing to tell your family and people that you care about, your loved ones, but to stand up on stage, TED Talk, etc., um, in front of a live studio audience, when the whole thing was over, I realized I felt more comfortable and I grew into myself even more.
Yeah.
So I think there is lots of room for us to grow into, who we are and who we are becoming. The fluidity of life allows us not to be one thing at any one particular time. There's always room for growth. So I look forward to seeing and witnessing how you continue to evolve and express that either through your books, your talks, or the way you dress. I mean, there's lots of time to grow and explore all of that.
I want to share something with you because I think this is kind of interesting. And I don't know if I've told you this, but in January, I did a play. Okay. and it was called Die Mommy Die, which is a very big farce. Charles Bush wrote it, and so it's really funny. But I wanted to share is that I had a hard time with it because I ended up playing the woman
Oh,
in the
wow.
play.
Okay.
The whole play, I was a woman. And I was like, oh my God, this is really pulling. I never want to be a drag queen. And that was one of the things I remember talking to the director saying, I don't want this to look like a drag queen. Can we make it? I want it to just be as authentic as I possibly can. And
Okay.
we worked through it and we did it. And here's the other interesting part is the person who played my husband was a woman. Um, the child who played my son is pansexual. The person who played my lover, transsexual. So we had broken all these barriers within this play visually, as well as playing the. It's incredible. I should send you a picture of it
Yeah, I'm
sometime.
mind blown
It's
right now.
it was so
Was
that's
that was
incredible.
intentionally casted that way? Like the men are going to play
Yes,
women, etc. Yeah.
right. And now the person who played my
Wow.
daughter was a cis female. So there was all these levels, and
Hmm.
when people came to see the show, they didn't understand that they were also being introduced to all these different abilities that was going on.
Wow.
All these different expressions
Right.
of sexuality, of fluidity, and it was the most, I want to say, the most freeing experience I had. Because once we got up and we were open and the audience was so receptive, it was like, oh my God, I just touched a part of my life that I had never really understood or wanted to try to understand. I was afraid to
Hmm.
play that feminine side because everyone used to call me the little faggot when I was a kid.
Right.
Or I remember going to the grocery store and hiding behind my dad's legs. He was 6'4", tall, incredible good looking man. And they would always say, "Oh, your daughter is so cute. Why do you give her a buzz haircut?" And I was always told that I was too pretty to be a boy and all this stuff. So those are things that I carried with me. And then to be able to play that woman and to allow her come forward, it was pretty incredible. So I am trying to
Right.
express myself and experience these things, but I'm also learning from everyone else, just like I learned from you. I will watch RuPaul's Drag Race because I want to watch those people evolve.
Right.
Because they bounce back and forth from being their boy self to their alternative ego, back to whatever self that they were. Um, and I love that she when RuPaul has broken that barrier that trans people can be a part of this as well. It's not just men who dress up as women, but what about women who have transitioned over to become women? What a great platform to express who they are and how performance is. And it just kind of blurs all that whole idea of what's right or wrong, black or white, male, female. It doesn't matter anymore.
Hmm.
So there, boy,
That's amazing. I
you
wish
got me
I had been
talking about
opportunities.
things I've.
Yeah, no, that's
uh,
great. I mean, I wish I could see this play. Yeah, if it is still running, please send me a link and I'll post it in the description. Or if it
It's
ever
not
comes back,
running anymore,
it's not.
unfortunately, but I can
Oh
send you
no.
pictures.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely want to see what you look like as a woman in character.
Oh my God.
Good for you.
Anyway,
I mean, you're doing amazing work, and I love how you're stepping into these opportunities like 100% in because you have to if you really want to deliver your role and sell the character. So I'm sure you did an amazing job. Um,
thank you.
I want to talk about the work that you do as a coach. You're not only
Okay.
finding your voice and power, but you're helping others, including survivors, do that through your coaching. Um, can you talk about the certifications you have, be it self-talk? You mentioned Dr. Shaz, who's the founder of self-talk, neuroscience, and NLP. What does a session with you look like?
Well, thank you. And I'm excited to talk about this. I first started doing coaching because I realized that I created a false self just to get through the day. Since I was, through my high school years and through the abuse and everything, I created these ideas that I thought were acceptable in society. And doing that, I lost who my true self is and my passion and all that stuff. So I wanted to help other survivors realize that maybe they have done the same thing. Maybe they've created a false self just to get through and survive the day. And to be able to start tearing that back and finding out what their favorite color is or stuff like that is really powerful. And to realize that they have the choice to make a decision, to have a choice, to do something on their own without feeling like they have to be guided. Because that's one of the things with the survivors is that we have, and athletes, we have been told for so long what we can and cannot do. And we have to follow what is being dictated to us. And we do. We're like little robots. We follow right in there. So to be able to sit back and say, wait a minute, I don't want to do that today, it's powerful. So that's what it is. And so I started with Dr. Chad because of Tracy Wright, which you know. And she was the first person that told me that I had the power within me. And I kind of bucked that. I kind of like I didn't want to receive that. I resisted it for a while, but she kept talking with me and kept working with me. And one of my issues is that I had a hard time with therapists because some of the people who were my abusers were therapists. So I'd go into a session and the whole thing would become about what was going to go on the couch, and I never really understood that. And so I started just trying to figure out what they wanted me to say and do it as quickly as I could so I can get out. We never got to what the real reason was. So Tracy was working through that with me and saying that you do not have to be the victim anymore. Listen to the, Incredible You or these apps that he has, and you can change your life. And I said, okay, I'll take it. And since then, I started finding that that worked for me on my healing journey. And that helped me get forward and moving forward and helping other people. And that's why I wanted to do. So that's why I became a coach. And so I became certified with self-talk first. And that's where we met.
Mhm.
And I got to, and I've been helping people the last couple of years through that. And I thought, okay, this is great, but I want to make it even better. So then I got certified as in neuroscience. I got certified in NLP and LGBT because there's so many facets of me that I want to put in. So now what comes in when a client comes into me is I start to discover where they are, where they want to be and what they want to do. And we start finding things. And by all these different certifications, I'm able to expand that and envelop them into a more inclusive, more inviting way so that they can see that, hey, I'm coming into you because I'm depressed. Right. Well, that's general. We all know we all get depressed. Well, it's part of living. Well, why are you depressed? And we start discovering maybe the little things thinking, oh, so maybe this happened when you were a kid. Or maybe, and so you start to deconstruct it and having them help it. But being able to be certified in all these different areas allows me to open that up to the point that we can go in the neural pathways. We can go into the LGBT community and find out if there's something there. We can go in the NLP and help you understand that there's nothing wrong with you. And one of the visions I like to use is like, the blue sky is always there, but our thoughts are like clouds that cover it up. But when the clouds are all there, the blue sky is still behind the clouds. And the clouds are only meant to just go past. We will focus on them and they will stay in front of that blue sky. And if we can find a way to let them go and get back onto their journey, blue sky will come back out.
Mm.
It never left us. It's right there the whole time. And that's the same thing about our true selves. It's always with us. We've never lost that. We may have buried it and hidden it because maybe we thought it wasn't good enough. Or maybe we were afraid we were too vulnerable. Maybe we were too sensitive. Well, if that's who your true self is. It's like, putting the light under the bushel and hiding it. We want that light out there to everybody see.
I love that. And in my bio, I mentioned just recently became specialized in working with the LGBTQ community. Um, I love that because even myself, I personally feel more comfortable working with a practitioner who's part of our community. So why was it important for you to service our community?
This is going to sound a little selfish because it was for me.
Hmm.
It was for me to start to understand who I am and how I fit in the community, and to be able to understand that there was nothing wrong with me, that being a fluid person, being a person who's changing, our lives go through these transitions, and there's nothing wrong with that. And to be able to embrace that and hug it and love on it, basically, put all that love on there, I was able to open myself up even more so that I can see someone who's struggling with going through the transition of, do I get the operation or do I just live as a man who lives as a woman? Is that wrong? No. What is best for you? And being able to talk to teenagers who are dealing with that fusion, because there's a whole, why do we allow our government to decide what a person wants to do with their whole self? Yeah, I understand on paper and I get it, but you're not that person's parent, and you're telling them we can't do this, beta blockers, all these things. What? And I think one of the other things is that frustrates at me right now is the trans athletes who are competing in a different field than what they were assigned to at birth, and everyone getting upset with them. Now, if that child was, and this is something we could have another discussion about, if
Hmm.
that child was able to transition before puberty hit, we would not have those issues. Because once puberty hits, that's when the body becomes what they're assigned to, and then they can go back and redo everything, but they've already had that body built, you know. Or what do we do with the people who are intersex, who had no choice when they were younger? When somebody decided, well, we're going to make this a boy or we're going to make this a girl because they had both. So which one, and we'd never find out what that child really, their true self was, because can they tell us at that age? You know?
Hmm.
And what if they grow up and they're in the wrong body or the wrong identification? How mentally is that for their mindset? And to be able to just talk about it to somebody, I think is incredible. That is the first step. It's to be able to sit down and know someone's not going to judge you. And I'll tell you, before I started this journey, I was judging my own community. I really was. Why does someone have to be so gay? Why can't they be a little bit more? Is that truly who they are? Or are they just trying to get some attention? What is the real, because you can see the real flamboyant ones. Are they really that way? Or is that that's how I judged.
Hmm.
And now it's like, no, they're expressing themselves. And I'm able to open up and see a different view. So it started out as a selfish thing.
Right. Well, since it is Pride Month, I want to wish you happy Pride Month.
You as well.
Do you remember what your first Pride experience was like?
Oh my. Yes, I can. Yeah, I was in New York, and I was a young actor. And I was told by my agents at the time that I wasn't allowed to be gay because it would ruin my career. And I had done a lot of stuff already. I had been on soap operas and everything, and they were trying to pair me for some more stuff. And I had already done a lot of stage work. And so I really went on this journey of being straight. I even went to conversion therapy, which it's crazy, really crazy. But I kept failing. And
Voluntarily?
well, under the suggestion that if I did that for the agents, then they knew I was really working for it and I really wanted it. So I did, which is again one of those residues of being someone who was abused to
Mhm.
appease someone else. But I remember that I was walking down the village, and all of a sudden I heard something, and it was the gay pride. And I was in such awe. I hid behind everybody else, but I was just like a kid in a candy store. I wanted to see everything. And there was jealousy that came up inside me. And I can remember that they are able to express themselves. and I'm not able to. So that was my first gay pride,
Mhm.
and I always would watch from afar.
Yeah, that was actually similar to my pride experience. I went with a group of straight friends who wanted to go, and I was horrified, but I was like kind of looking down. We just went to, I think, a club or walked down Toronto's Church Street, and I was like, "Oh, I'm safe. I'm with straight people. No one will know," kind of thing.
Right.
But my experience is far different now. So, what did pride mean to you back then, and what does it mean for you now?
Well, pride to me back then was fear
Hmm.
because how could I be what I wanted to become and have this part? How could I have both? You know, and I can remember, oh my God, oh boy, you're bringing up some interesting thing. I remember Billy Porter saying, dude, you got to be true to yourself or you're going to be, you know, I don't know if I can cuss here, but he's like, you're going to be screwed for life.
Right.
You need to be true to yourself and you're false. And I got angry. I was mad. I was pissed off. I don't need you as a friend. Get away.
Wow.
You go do it. But he was really truthful, and kept coming into other actors, especially in New York, who were saying, you got to be true to yourself, dude, or you're never going to be successful. And I didn't know what that meant. And so it was fear, but I kept being drawn to it. I mean, I would find myself walking down through the village, and I lived up in the Midtown. I'd walk through the village during the day or go have a coffee somewhere just to see and watch people and wonder how were they able to be so open? I was a scared chicken, afraid of everything, you know, and I also was very confused with but I'm attracted to this young woman. Does that mean what am I allowed to be with this? Am I thought I was an imposter on both sides. So I felt like I never fit in anywhere,
Hmm.
because I never felt that I was 100%, and this is going to sound weird, 100% gay because I still found people attractive. And that always gave me a hard time and confused me.
Hmm. And so, what does pride mean for you now?
Well, pride to me now is just celebrating who you are. Doesn't matter who you are, what your orientation is, or what your fluidity is, or what. Just being able to take, and then here in Dayton, it's basically one day, unfortunately, Um, and it's the parade, and then you go out afterwards. But it's this camaraderie, it's this connection that we're all part of something, and it's beautiful. And people over kind of like for that day, we overlook all the other things, the stigmas, the discriminations. We're all united.
Hmm.
It's like I can't. I'm obsessed with anything with Stonewall. The movies. I mean, do you think about it? Who were the people that took the first steps?
The black trans people and
Yes.
the drag queens, and yeah.
Where was the white man, the white gay man? Nowhere.
Hmm.
If it wasn't for those incredible, brave individuals, would we even have a gay pride day?
No, we wouldn't actually. No.
And those are the people that everyone lashes out at, you know? I feel so sorry for my trans friends because of the hell they're going through right now.
Hmm.
And with our new government right now, they're scared to death. There are so many people afraid to go to the Pride this year because of what's going on in our society. And I don't know how it's going to turn out.
Yeah. So we we talk about who started the pride movement, and we are in a continuation of a different phase and era of it. So it'll be interesting to see who shows up now.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Well,
And I guarantee we know who they are.
exactly. John Michael, I so appreciate you and the amazing work that you're doing. I think you're an incredible human being. I have a lot of admiration for you, for the person that you are, the work that you're doing. You have created a space to help service victims of abuse, including the 2S LGBTQI community and many others. I will have your contact information in the description for anyone who wants to learn how to work with you, watch your TED Talk, follow you on social media, and to purchase your books. As we wrap things up, I would like to request that you read a paragraph from a post that you wrote titled My Story. And I love that you dedicate this to everyone suffering in silence.
Thank you. I'll be honored to. I'm going to take a deep breath on this. Here we go. My story is a testament to the power of resilience, of courage, and of hope. It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is light to be found. And though the road ahead may be long and fraught with challenges, I walk it with my head held high, knowing that I am not alone. For I am more than the sum of my scars, more than the echoes of my past. I am a survivor, fighter, a voice in the darkness. And as I step into the light, I know that my story is just beginning. My journey has been one of immense struggle, but also one of the incredible resilience and growth. From the depths of despair, I found the courage to break my silence and reclaim my voice. By sharing my story, I've not only found healing for myself, but I've also become a beacon of hope for others who may be silently suffering. I've learned that healing is not a destination, but a journey, and I'm committed to walking alongside others as they navigate their own paths to recovery. Together, we can break the cycle of silence and shame and create a world where survivors are supported, believed, and empowered to seek the help they deserve. So if you're reading and resonating with my story, know that you are not alone. There's hope, there's help, and there is a brighter future ahead. Let's continue to stand together, lift each other up, and pave the way towards a world free from abuse and trauma. We are stronger together, and together we can create a future filled with healing, resilience, and hope.
John Michael, thank you so much for all that you do and all that you are. It's been an absolute honor. Much love to you today and always.
And back at you.
I'm Farhan Dalla. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's episode of Elevate Your Life, a transformational podcast. I hope today's conversation has elevated you in some way and inspired you to connect, move, and meditate. I'd really appreciate your support by following and rating this podcast. Come back soon and join me for another transformative conversation.